Dark Ocean by Patrick Carpenter.
Chapter 3. If Zach Bryan could have used only 2 words in the English language to sum up the past year of his life, those words would be total and garbage, in that order. Yes, there could be no denying that this had been a black-letter year. Even as a die-hard optimist, Zach could not find it in him to reconcile his misfortunes of late, at least not without searching the bottom of a bottle. First, there had been his job. Zach had always been ruthlessly ambitious to a fault, some might say. But it all came to a point this last year as Zach began vying for a promotion. If he had succeeded, he would have finally had his own starship and been free to explore his ambitions on a greater level than ever before. Alas, it was not to be. Zach's wife, Amelia, had always disliked him being in the military, and she especially disliked the idea of him becoming a starship captain, an endeavor which would surely exacerbate the issue. As it was, she was always worrying about his safety, and she felt frustrated that their daughter, Jamie, had to grow up barely seeing her father. Yes, Amelia had been patient throughout his tour in Outer Sari, quelling the post-war civil unrest. After all, that had been for the greater good, allegedly. Then she'd been patient amidst his more recent assignments, training cadets for elite positions on Grand Titan. But this new job was a step too far. Second, the castle began to crumble. Zach and Amelia barely spoke when he was home. They never had sex. He wasn't even sure he liked her. She was always so content with mediocrity and forcing him to lower himself, and he couldn't handle it. So he told her about his affair. It didn't go as well as he'd hoped, and he hadn't expected it to go well at all. Not only did he lose Amelia and Jamie, but his mistress also broke it off when she found out he was married, which he didn't expect. On top of that, his reputation was ruined. Just like that, the great Zach Bryan was nothing but a cheater, a liar, and a stupid joke. So, Zach did what he always did, which was bury himself in his work. Since he had lost the promotion, it wasn't even satisfying, but it kept him busy. Now here he was, sitting in a coffee shop on Grand Titan, sipping some caffeine and scrolling through his work emails on his phone. "May I top you off, Mr. Bryan?" the waitress asked, hovering a steaming pot of coffee over the table. "What?" Bryan looked up from his phone, dazed. "Oh, yes, thank you." "Any time." As she walked away, Zach reached into the inner pocket of his faded, fur-lined faux leather bomber jacket and retrieved his favorite flask. On it was an engraving of a lion and a wolf fused together at the torso and wrapped around one another until their heads came furiously face to face. In it was his favorite bourbon. A notification lit up Zach's phone as he poured the bourbon into his coffee. A text from his colleague, Rachel McGinnis. "You watching the news?" In fact, the news was on the television over the counter to his left, but he hadn't been watching it, too caught up in his thoughts. For argument's sake, Zach glanced at the screen as he took a brave sip of steam-garnished bourbon coffee. The anchors were going on about some explosion in space, a ship hit by a meteor storm or something. "Yeah, so what?" Zach texted back. He lit a cigarette, even though there was no smoking in the diner. What could they do anyway? Zach didn't care. Life had become so monotonous and pointless. 9 hours ago, he'd been sitting in an old easy chair with a glass of bourbon on the table in front of him and a gun in his mouth. "I have only 1 bullet in the chamber," he'd reasoned, white-knuckling his ancient sixer. "If I pull this trigger once every day, I can live up to a maximum of 6 days before my brains become part of the hotel decor. However, if I don't die, I have to give it the old college try, go out in the world and try to find a reason not to pull the trigger again." As he rationalized through this madness, he also decided the reason couldn't be Amelia, because she would never forgive him. So far, he had the luck of 2 days and was working on 3. Anyway, what could these people possibly do to make Zach feel any worse? Another text from Rachel read, "How many meteors do you see straight that close to Grand Titan?" Zach thought about that. The nearest asteroid belt was pretty far, and yeah, rogue storms happened, but that's why they invented safe lanes. Those barriers were capable of protecting traveling ships from small objects like meteorites. "Was the ship off course?" "Outside barrier," Zach replied. "It vanished, Zach. Communication blackout. If it was a storm, the crew would have signaled for help well ahead of the blackout." "Were they shot down?" "Looks like it. At Raynor, they're being very hush." "Grothians?" The waitress came back over and interrupted him. "Excuse me, sir. You can't smoke in here."
"Hold on," Zach insisted, typing the rest of his text to Rachel, which read, "You probably can't say a..."
"Excuse me? Jesus, I said hold on. For heaven's sake, I'll put it out." This damn planet? Before Zack could conclude his belligerent rant, he and everyone else in the diner were startled by a huge explosion directly across the street. Horrified screams followed as the subsequent shockwaves shattered the glass windows and doors of the diner and blew the metal door frames right off the hinges and into the specials board. Just as this was happening, Zack dove to the floor, tackling the waitress and covering her beneath him as glass rained down around them. Zack got to his feet immediately and looked around. "Stand to the tables," he directed the people in the diner. Everyone complied, crawling under tables, some huddling together, praying, crying even. Zack had no fear. He was probably going to die today anyway. He glanced over at the shattered window by the front door, and then everything was different. It all changed in one single moment. What happened took all of 2 or 3 seconds, but instantly he knew its significance. Tonight, Zack Bryan would not pull the trigger. Not tonight, nor tomorrow, nor for a long time. For Zack Bryan had seen something amazing, and he had to pursue it.